Hi, and welcome to Hull and Hull TV. I'm Dana O'Brien, and I'm joined by Ian Hull and Suzana Popovic-Montag, partners at Hull and Hull LLP, an innovative law firm that practices exclusively in estate, trust, and capacity litigation. Here at Hull and Hull TV, we're exploring the issues around estate planning that affect you. Ian and Suzana, with social media, electronic banking, and online investing, more of our lives are online. That means statements, tax receipts are stored and filed online, creating a virtual estate. Ian, how is technology playing a greater role in estate planning?
Well, I think there's three components of this. One is, we can't forget, is that not everyone dies old. And there are young people that have intense social media presences, an intense online activity that needs to be dealt with and needs to be stayed on top of. The second is that as we grow older, we do love the conveniences of the online banking especially, and so we're going to need that to be properly organized and protected and understood that it will continue after we die, and we have to manage that. And the third component is really just becoming comfortable with the fact that we are going to have a legacy online, and it can be in the social media, it can be visual, it can be financial. And so we need to be ready for that when we organize our estate plans and when we look at our estate planning steps that we're going to undertake.
So do most Canadians take their virtual estate into account when estate planning?
I think most don't. And I think that's easily resolved by, at the time you're preparing your wills, making sure your advisors are asking the right questions. Do we have a list of the bank accounts? Well, do we have a list of the passwords? I mean, they're just as important. The second thing I think that we get a little loose with is accepting our responsibilities that get created when we're going online in a joint environment. So if I have access to the joint account with my mother and I have her password, what happens on death with that? And do we need to be dealing with that immediately or seamlessly, or how are we discussing that with the rest of the family?
Suzana, does technology simplify or complicate estate planning?
I think actually a little bit of both, if you can imagine that. It certainly complicates traditional estate planning in the sense that we're now dealing with not just simply assets that people are comfortable with, like personal assets or real property, bank accounts. We're dealing with digital media presences and the digital economy as well. And that does seem to make it a little bit more tricky to plan for. Ian mentioned the importance of knowing, what it is that people own and what kind of, do they have web pages? Do they have Twitter accounts? Do they have online banking? And if they have all of these things, do we know where their passwords are? Do we know how to access them if something happens after they're gone? It also helps to know if people want to actually continue on with these things and memorialize, for instance, Facebook pages, or if they want to shut them down. And so all of this kind of pre-planning and talking to the people who are going to be the ones helping you through this at the end of the day, I think is really important.
But what happens if someone doesn't pass along the information and passwords and all of the information that's associated with that online account?
I think that's when it gets really, really complicated. I mean, it's hard enough to have to create a list of what it was that someone had, let alone how to access it. And so we're getting into not only the practical difficulties of locating and being able to access these things, but we may be facing conflict of laws issues if these services are being provided off-site, if we've got executors who go in with authority to deal on behalf of a deceased person, but maybe not be recognized in foreign jurisdictions. Those kinds of issues come to light and make it a lot more complicated.
Ian, what's the best way of securing and transferring a virtual estate?
Well, I pick up on Suzana's point. The truth is that most of the social media vehicles are not in Canada, and we are dealing with off-site servers and so on. So the easiest way is to go in with your password and to have your executor with your password. And I tell my clients, let's not get too fancy. I know you're really excited about being online and paperless, but what happened to the good old-fashioned list? And that list is kept somewhere safe, kind of like your will. Kept somewhere safe. I mean, there always are places to put important documents. So the old-fashioned write it down doesn't hurt, but there's also online services that'll allow you to store and to have access to that data. That is a really helpful tool as well. So you've got best of both worlds, but the worst answer is zero. and not having anything organized, so that your executors are trying to beg the Costa Rican government to let you into a server that deals with an account for which your parents have been dealing with for 10 years, but you don't have the password.
All right, good advice. Ian and Suzana, thank you. And thanks for joining us on Hull and Hull TV.